Okay, so you just got your first industrial sewing machine. This video is going to be relevant for all basic single needle industrial machines, Juki DDL-555, DDL-8700, 8100, and any sort of single needle lock stitch garment machine that looks anything like this. Let's jump right into it because nobody likes a long intro. So the first thing we're going to talk about is belt tension. There's a belt running from your machine's hand wheel down to the motor pulley. There might be a cover, like a plastic cover that's covering the belt. There should be a few screws here. Just take it off. And your immediate instinct might be tighter is better. Let's make it really tight. Not exactly. That's going to put unnecessary strain on the hand wheel and the motor pulley, and it's not going to let your machine run as free as it can. You want there to be a little bit of slack right here. You want to be able to push in and be able to push it in about, a quarter or a half inch. There should be a little bit of tension on there, but kind of just like this, that's all you need. You don't need any more than that. This belt has a lot of grip. There's a lot of weight being carried by it. That's all you need. So how do you adjust it? So here is the motor that's mounted underneath the table. Yours might look different. It might be larger, metal, the old style clutch motor. That's okay. It's the same adjustment. So what we have here is the adjustment, and this adjusts the entire height of the motor. So if your motor belt is too loose, you would lower the motor by loosening this screw, bringing it down, and then bringing that top nut down to bring that motor lower, get more tension on the belt. But if your motor belt is too tight, you're going to want to raise up that motor a little bit to give a little more slack to your belt. So really, this is the only adjustment screw. It's just one long threaded rod, and you can very easily make adjustments just based on that to get that proper belt tension with a nice bit of ease. So now that you've adjusted the height of your motor, that's also going to adjust the height of the pedal, right? Now, you want your pedal to be not completely flat. You want it to be on a slight incline. That's generally the most comfortable foot pedal setting. So in order to adjust this, it's very simple. There's two rods going up from the pedal to the motor, and they're connected by this little linkage. So all you have to do is loosen this screw. And for all these adjustments I've talked about so far, all you need is an adjustable wrench. So I've got it around there. I'm going to loosen that. So now you can see this is moving freely, two separate pieces, and you just slot them into each other. And now you basically set your pedal where you want it to be, right? You could have it on an incline here. I don't like that. It doesn't give you a lot of control. I like to have it a little more flat so your foot can kind of rest on top of it. And when you're ready, you can do a little tighten like that to keep it in place, but then really go in with the adjustable wrench and tighten it up just like so. And now we've got our foot pedal in a nice position, nice and tight, good position. Now that you've got your motor and everything set up properly, we want to make sure that the bobbin winder is in the correct position. So it's just two screws that are holding it down. Most bobbin winders will have two screws. And in its back position, the resting position, you want it just behind, or just in front of rather, the belt without touching it. A little gap in between there. So that when you push this forward and engage the bobbin winder, it makes a nice bit of contact with the belt, and that belt is going to move it. So if it's too far away, all you have to do, loosen those two screws, shift it forward until it's just before it hits the belt, tighten that down, you should be good to go. Boom. So now let's talk about oil and lubrication. You probably know that your machine oils itself, but there's a couple of things that we want to check just to make sure that it's doing it properly. So first things first, your machine should have a peg like this on the back of the table poking up, which that's the machine rest. So that when you pull the machine back, it can rest on that peg without going fully back. So if you've got oil in your pan, the first thing you want to make sure is if it's old oil or if it's still fresh and good enough to use. So sewing machine oil should be clear and thin like water, just like the stuff I have in this bottle here. As it gets older, it turns yellow, and then it turns orange, and then eventually, after a million years, it turns brown. So if your sewing machine oil looks like this, it's got a hint of yellow in it, that means that it's started to go bad, it's lost its viscosity, and you should not use it anymore. So what do? Well, right there, that black thing on the side here, that's a big screw, and that's your oil drain screw. So what you do is you get a bucket or a cup or a jar, you place it directly under that screw, you'll see on the underside, and then you just loosen that screw, take it all the way out, and that oil will drain out into whatever receptacle you've got there. Okay? And then you just clean up all the little bits of the oil pan. Things tend to get stuck in there, like little bits of thread and little embellishments that you use on your garments. So just clean everything up, get yourself some fresh sewing machine oil, and then you're going to refill the pan. And the one thing that I'll note here is that there is a high and a low sort of indicator, right? So you want to fill it up until you're between the high and low markings. That's how you know how much to fill it up. And as you are filling it up, you want to make sure to get all the areas. So don't just pour it on the right side. You want to make sure that it's getting into all the areas. So just kind of evenly pour it around until it's full, or until it's between the high and the low markings. One thing that is not talked about enough on these machines is the fact that they only self-oil when you're sewing at high speeds. So if I'm just doing regular sewing at home and I'm sewing at this speed, or even at that speed, the machine isn't oiling itself. And we know because this is our oil indicator window. Okay, so when the machine is oiling itself properly, you will see oil sputtering up in this window, and that's how you know. So what do? Every so often, I would say at least a couple of times a week, you want to unthread your machine completely, take out the bobbin case, unthread the top, lift up your presser foot, and you just want to run your machine at a very high speed, and you will see the oil sputtering up through here. I would recommend doing this at least once a week, if not twice, just to make sure that your machine is completely oiled all throughout. And when you run it, do it at least 60 seconds at a time. So once or twice a week, unthread your machine, good opportunity to clean it anyways, and then run it at top speed for about a minute. Make sure it's getting completely oiled. You will feel the difference when you move the hand wheel before and after. So next, I'm going to show you the 2 spots on these machines that need to be oiled manually. So once again, we're back at the bobbin winder here. This is one of 2 spots that needs to be oiled manually. It's an independent mechanism, doesn't get oiled by the oil pan. So what you want to do, every once in a while, this little hole here is an oiling hole, and that's going to lubricate this whole shaft. So all you do is put a couple drops of oil in that hole, run the bobbin winder, and that will make sure that it's nice and lubricated. Okay, now the second place that you have to manually oil is the hook. Now, newer industrial sewing machines and some other machines have a self-oiling hook, which gets oiled when you run the machine, like we said. So if you know that your machine has a self-oiling hook, then you can skip this part. However, if it's an older style, regular style, pay attention. So the hook has 2 parts. It has the basket, this part, which stays stationary. It's held in place. And then you have the rest of the hook, which moves around it. And so this is a friction point between these 2 parts all the way around. And it's very important that this gets kept oiled. Otherwise, your machine will run very noisily and it'll give you a lot of problems. So first of all, you want to clean this area. You want to clean it very often, and you never want to oil when it's dirty. So as you can see here, as you go around, you'll notice a ridge on the side of the basket, right? And as the hook's coming around it, there's kind of like an opening here. And there's this ridge that kind of sticks out. And what you want to do is, on that opening, in that opening, you want to get a good drop of oil onto that ridge that sticks out and just move it around a few times to get that oil worked in. And that is how you oil the hook right there. Very easy. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is needles. You want to make sure, first of all, that you're doing the right system type, the right type of needle for your machine. So most Jukis, most basic garment Jukis like the DDL-555 or the 8700, 8100, they use a DBX1. So that's what you want to look for. There's a bunch of other alternative names for this type of needle, but generally speaking, DBX1, that's what you want to look for. If you see it on a package, you know you're good. Some other common needle types for garment machines like this is DPX5. It's going to be one of those two, so just look up online, look up your machine, look up what kind of needles it takes. You should be able to figure out whether it's one or the other. And then you want to make sure to match the type of needle to your fabric, right? So it's very similar to home machines in terms of the size, right? So, you know, size 14 is kind of your middle of the road. Size 16 and 18 are for heavier things. Size 12 and 10 are for lighter things. Now, the thing that's going to confuse most people is the needle point, okay? So there's a lot of different types in the industrial world, and you have to figure out which one you want. So generally, if it says nothing, like this one, right, there's no extra kind of letters here, that means you're going to be a universal tip, regular tip, kind of, you know, jack of all trades type of tip. And then there's these other ones, right? And with home machines, we're used to it saying, you know, ballpoint or stretch or denim. Industrial is a little bit different. So, you know, if it says nothing or if it says R, that means it's a regular universal. SPI means sharp tip, which is kind of like your microtex. SES, that's a light ballpoint. And SUK is a medium ballpoint. SUK is what you want for sort of knits, things like that, things that need like a really nice ballpoint. SES is like in between your regular and your full ballpoint. So it's kind of like a light ballpoint, halfway ballpoint. And then there's a few other types, but those are the main ones that most people use. And so if you look up online, you should be able to find a guide. So just bringing attention to that DBX1 size that you know, but make sure to look into the different needle styles, you know, the tip of the needle, because that makes a big difference on your fabric. Last but not least, here is how to properly install the needle in your industrial sewing machine. So on home machines, we have a flat side on the back, which means that it can only go in one way. With industrial machines, they have a round shank needle, which means at the top here, it's all the way around, so you have to manually set it in the right position. So on all sewing machines, on the front side, you have this sort of groove, this cutout that goes all the way down the needle to the eye. And then on the other side, you have what's called the scarf, right? Like sort of at the bottom here, there's that cutout where it kind of dips in towards the needle. So with those two things in mind, I'll show you how to set it in the machine. The scarf, or the cutout of the needle, is going to face to the right, so closer to sort of where the bobbin winder is. And the eye, the part where you thread it through with this long groove, that's going to face to the left. Okay, so you just want to make sure, push it all the way up into the needle bar, and you want to make sure that it's perfectly straight with this front part going exactly to the left, and the side with the scarf, the cutout, is going all the way to the right. And you just want to make sure that it's sort of as straight as possible and not slightly skewed to one side or another. Once you've got that in place, hold it with one hand and take your screwdriver, screw it down in another place. Boom, done. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or ideas for future videos, leave them down in the comments.